Hello and welcome to this month's astrological forecast. We're watching the sun now go into the sign of Sagittarius and head towards the galactic centre for the much waited for alignment of 2012. That of course is on the 21st of December when we reach the winter solstice. Solstice means sun stands still. So this is a point which used to be celebrated across the world with sacred holy days, and it's the true origin of the Christmas period, as the sun dies on the Southern Cross to be born 3 days later and give its light back to the world. So if you've got the 21st of December, then 3 days later is the eve of the 24th into the 25th, and this is the sun being reborn. So we've got a kind of mixture in later Christian times of Easter and Christmas all in one, but this is a very sacred time of the year, and obviously this year we're heading towards the galactic alignment, which is a rare 26,000 year aspect. And there's nothing really to be done about that. We're in the middle of a phase shift that some say is about 50 years wide, so we may be 25 years into a shift already. And as you know, every day this year has been quite spectacular, and it's all about being inward rather than outward. So it's a good time to just be present, to celebrate the true spirit of the winter festival, the winter solstice, and to just be still and see if you can be as aligned as possible as the sun goes through this part of our galaxy. So a little bit about Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the archer, the arrow pointing straight towards the galactic centre, and Sagittarians do love to get straight to the point. There's not much small talk with them. They're often very wise, Sagittarius, and they're connected with the ancient shaman. And you'll find that Santa Claus's red and white outfit, way before a certain soft drink took it as their advertising campaign, actually reflects the shamanic Nordic shaman when they took psychedelic flights using the red cap mushrooms. So the red and white of Santa Claus is actually a shamanic aspect of Sagittarius. The ruling planet Jupiter is also red and white with a very big diameter, and this is where Santa is now given his big belly and his ability to travel around the world in a single night, as Jupiter, the ruling planet of Sagittarius, has the biggest expansive field in our solar system after the Sun, and it travels far and wide. So the Jupiter-Sagittarian aspect means that many Sagittarians do love to travel and expand the mind. Whereas Gemini likes to process thought and manifest like the magician, so tune into thought forms in the antennae, process through the brain, and manifest into reality. What Sagittarius likes to do is study long and hard, is to get a big message together and to broadcast it out to a wider audience. So you'll find many Sagittarians have put down the bow and arrow but taken up the director's camera to shoot with, or are in publishing in some way. It's all about getting a wise message out to the widest possible audience. It's a fire sign, and for me it speaks of the tribal fire, really. It's the oldest of the fire signs. It's that ancestral spark inside of us. It's the shamanic ritual fire. So at this time of year they used to have a hearth fire in the hardest days of the winter and actually burn that and sit round it, the Yule log. And the hearth and the heart and earth are all words that have the same letters in them, and this was the centre of the winter celebration when people sat round the fire. And as you know, when you stare into flames, it can be very evocative, and it can connect you back to your ancestral and galactic roots. So this is a very deep fire sign, but also linked with the element of earth in the deep midwinter. The yew tree is significant to Sagittarius, and also the pine tree, which we see reflected in the Christmas tree tradition. But the yew tree were planted on sacred ground, and now you'll find them in the churchyards, as many churches are planted on sacred ground to begin with. And the yew has the connection with life, death, and the other world, so they're very long-living trees. And this is the month of yew in the Celtic tree calendar. So the bow and arrow of Sagittarius used to be made out of yew wood and swan's feathers, and in the middle of the galactic centre we have a constellation called Cygnus, which is the swan. So we're seeing a connection there as well with shooting that cosmic arrow made out of yew and swan feather. back to the galactic centre, which is where it was said souls travelled on the Milky Way to leave this plane and go back home. So it's a very sacred point in most cultures. So that's the definition of Sagittarius, really. Having a look now at some of the lunar aspects. So we have a full moon eclipse in Gemini, and this is on the 28th of November. Eclipses often mean that something can suddenly change because one body has got in the way of another one and interrupted its field. So Gemini is known for quick thinking, but this might be a chance to either hop to the other side of the brain and to think more intuitively, or to turn off our thoughts for a while and just be present. So Gemini is normally in a stream of consciousness flow, but as the Earth's shadow is cast over the moon by the sun opposite, this might be a chance just to find some calm and some peace. And it's always said during eclipse time that you're better off doing nothing and leaving lots of room open, because if sudden change does come in, you're more able to respond and deal with it. So it's not a good time to go running around and organising things. It's a better time just to relax. This one is at 2:46 p.m, so it will be in the middle of the afternoon. And generally, like I say, there could be a message come through with this one, because we are dealing with Gemini the messenger. But I feel the message can only be heard if we're still and quiet enough to actually hear what it has to say. So that is the full moon on the 28th of November. That starts a 2-day period of reflection and possibly receiving messages, but mostly at the exact time, which would be 2:46 p.m. We then move on to the new moon, which is on December the 13th, and this obviously is a new moon in Sagittarius, 21 degrees. So all the things that we were just saying about Sagittarius, the sage, the one that has a message, the one that's studied long and hard, the one that has acquired wisdom, the one that gets straight to the point, that shoots directly to the centre of things. This is the sun and the moon in that sign. It's a once a year aspect, so we may be able to take the message that we've received during the Gemini eclipse and put it into practice during the new moon on the 13th of December. This is the last new moon before the winter solstice on the 21st, and it does open up and carry us through on a 2-week window. So I feel that it's a good time to be very earthy, to remember the ancestors, to be very tribal and honest with our spark of life that we're carrying around inside of us, to get off the human treadmill and to actually slow down maybe a bit early before Christmas and all the palaver that brings, and to think back into the past, because we're soon to be heading through the winter solstice phase, and I feel there's a certain amount of recollection and wrapping up to be done over this new moon period. So very wise, very old, very ancestral, and as time isn't linear, as time is cyclical or more likely spiral, there could be some strong reminiscences of the civilizations that were glorious before us, and I believe that we're coming in to regain some of that power now. So we're entering a more positive cycle where we can actually use more of our brain, activate our DNA. But the only way forwards is to really remember some of the glorious cultures of the past, because we've been asleep for a while now, and they say that we're going to wake up slowly. So let's look backwards, let's honour what's gone before, let's find the old ways and incorporate them and see how we can use them as we go forwards into the new way of being. So the winter solstice itself on the 21st of December, some people say 11 a.m, some people say 12 p.m, I guess, lunchtime. The Maya will be watching it from dawn, as it's the birth of the triple sun. So you've got the sun at dawn rising, and then you've got the winter solstice itself aligning with the galactic centre, and then we've actually got the sun going through the galactic centre. So it's the rebirth of the triple sun. And nobody really knows what's going to happen. There's not much point even thinking about it. It's just a case of being present. The revolution will not be televised. This is a very internal aspect. So although we do have people running up mountains and and planning to be in epic places, I think you'll be just as well off on your sofa or in the local park, as long as you're quiet and calm and aligned and aware. So we've just had the month of Scorpio, which was telling us very strongly to get rid of all our gumph, the density of centuries, the psychological stories that we've been hanging on to. And when we get to this December the 21st point, it's just about being light, childish, joyful, empty, and in surrender, in the flow, not trying too hard to do anything, but just stop. And what's lovely about this is it always was a celebration where people stopped and took a day out of time. So if we do want to honour the ancestors and remember the old ways, then there's not much better way than to just take a day out, despite the Christmas pressures, and just to sit and be still, contemplate your cosmic origins, your divinity, the flame, the spark within, that fire of Sagittarius that links us all the way back and will carry us forward. And as we cross over that threshold, it's said that life begins to get a bit easier, the collective consciousness begins to approach critical mass, maybe, all depending on obviously every one of us, and the old system can break down and a new cycle can begin. So this is a phase shift from one old cycle into a new one, and every single one of us counts. It's just about being true and honest and sovereign to our vibration, because what you're transmitting from your heart center is what you're contributing. There is a big yod aspect in this chart, and it points to Jupiter, and the yod is referred to as a finger of God. So we have Saturn, Pluto pointing to Jupiter. Jupiter's in Gemini, and this really does feel like a continuation of something I've spoken of before, which is breaking out of the conditioned mind, breaking out of negative thinking, and coming around to allowing ourselves to regain some of our potential. So if you imagine Gemini as a gateway, this is the gateway that we're crossing through with Jupiter, the big planet in our solar system. So it's almost there to take us through the doorway, the stargate, and through to the other side. So it's up to every single person how they want to spend the day, where they're at. It's about being present, about being focused, and about being internal. But if you can take some time out just on that day, then that would be absolutely wonderful. I can't give you a time because it's got so many different times. It could be dawn, it could be 11 o'clock, it could be 12 o'clock, but I'd say at least take the morning off and just sit and be still and tune your vibration to pure and simple. And that's it really. So I will see you next month with the other side and Capricorn.